Hello, friends. It's Timothy here with Jank Diver Gaming, and today I am interviewing our latest Brawlbarians winner. I've got TRF with me on the line here to talk about his red-white Quintorius Cond deck from League number 5 of Brawlbarians. I do have to apologize to TRF here and to the audience that we actually already recorded this once, but due to a flub on my end, I didn't actually record anything TRF was saying. So instead of just posting, me talking to thin air about this deck, I figured we would probably run it back and try to record it again. So thanks for being a good sport about that. I know we've all got valuable things to do, but TRF is with me once again to talk about his deck, and I'll just go ahead and bring him in now. TRF, thanks for taking the time again to talk about this deck, but we'll talk about the Brawlbarian League. We'll talk about what happened with your deck here, the stipulations, and then again, I would like to talk about the stipulations that you picked for the league that we're currently in. Before we do that, I do want to just plug Brawlbarians here. It is a stipulation-based brawl deck building league, which is a mouthful to say, but basically what that means is every two-ish weeks we get a set of stipulations that we build our decks by. It's almost always peasant based, so commons and uncommons. You'll see that there's actually a mythic rare planeswalker here, so we'll get to why that is. But we do peasant based leagues with a set of stipulations. We all build different deck lists and we mash them against each other. And currently, the winner of each league gets to pick the stipulations for the next league from a pool of different stipulations that everybody kind of compiled together. So, I'll go ahead and throw this to you, TRF. First off, remind us what the actual stipulations were for League 5, because I keep forgetting, but remind us what those stipulations were, how you approach that from a deck building perspective, and then we can talk about some matchups and some card decisions and things like that.
Yes. Thank you for having me on again. Again, as I said to you before the show, talking about my decks is one of my favorite hobbies, and I wouldn't miss the chance to do it for the world. And I now even have a captive audience. But yeah, this league, The one stipulation was that it was Standard Brawl legal, so only cards that are legal in Standard. And actually, hold on, let me check myself before I wreck myself on that one.
I
Um,
think that's right. I think it
yeah, it
was
was
because we're playing with
Standard
60
Brawl.
card decks here when normally we play with
Yeah,
100 card decks.
and then the other one was Pauper Peril, which was that all the cards were common except for the commander, which could be any rarity.
Yeah.
So we went into this league, and I assumed that a lot of the people would be building like Adeline, or like there was a lot of talk about Atraxa, and every week with the armchair generals, myself included, sit on their hands and decide which commander is going to be the absolute best for the week, and everyone was pretty sure that Atraxa was going to sweep,
Mm-hmm.
which is why we didn't see a single Atraxa deck. So I started by just kind of looking at the pool of cards that were available. I realized that there was a lot of good redundancy in red and white. I have like 7 or 6 or 8 red 1 mana removal spells, and there were some more that I didn't even include, and some good white removal spells. And then I ended up settling on Quintorius. I started on 3 mana Chandra, because that's a pretty messed up magic card when all the cards in your deck are red, and you have this mana rock that's also a pinger, that's also a card advantage engine, and also sometimes ults and wins you the game. But the red card pool wasn't quite deep enough. And even here, as you can see, there are some somewhat unimpressive cards floating around. Like, I can't say I was excited to play Seismic Monstrosaur or anything.
Yeah. The
Um,
last 10-ish cards for any given deck were really filler when you're playing with only commons.
yeah, it gets like that. And normally when we have access to a lot of uncommons with the peasant rarity, then the decks actually end up being pretty high powered. Like this week's decks, there's some crunchy mid-rangey magic going on. But this week I kind of enjoyed it because the challenge of just building with stuff at common rarity means that the game changes pretty substantially. Like there's not much exile removal floating around. A lot of the good hard removal is either expensive or like an aura, and you can remove it that way. Um, and one of the reasons that I was so interested in playing Planeswalkers is there's not a lot of good Planeswalker removal at common. Like there are some black cards and there are some auras that do that, and after that you hope to attack them and get through.
Yeah, and I asked you
And
last time, like, Quintorius is here as just a value top end card, right? Just a powerful top end card. It's not like a synergistic card. It's not meant to be doing anything specific with Discover. It's just here, like, I'm going to kill all your creatures. I'm going to maybe play a threat or two, and then Quintorius is going to be the 5-drop that comes in after the board is clear, and I'm just going to make a 3/2 every turn of the game, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I was a Quintorius hater before I joined the Jack Divers server, and then in one of my first couple of drafts, I made a joke about the card, and everybody in the voice call immediately started shutting me down. Like, no, TRF, this card is really, really, really good. And I laughed it off, and then a couple of games later, I lost to it in astounding fashion. As it turns out, making a 3/2 every turn is pretty good, and it ults pretty quickly. I did manage to combo kill someone with the ult and just cast a bunch of spells.
Nice. Yeah, the Planeswalker making a dude every turn is also a problem when you're playing with a bunch of commons, because you just don't get a lot of 2-for-1 like removal. So everybody is playing 1-for-1 removal, a bunch of shocks and stuff like that, or braids, so on and so forth. You mentioned all the like banish and light type cards, but you're not 2-for-1 in Quintorius. They make a 3/2, you kill the 3/2. You make a 3/2, they kill the 3/2, and you're just using one card while they're using like a card per token that Quintorius is making. So these planeswalkers that spit out a token every turn, we saw a couple Nissas in this league as well. It's really hard to keep up with them if you end up at parity or like behind the planeswalker.
Oh yeah, no, the one of my two losses was to a Nissa player. I think it was Teld, and yeah, he just plopped down a lit Nissa. Actually, no, Teld actually overran me with his Nissa. There were two Nissa decks. I think it was the only duplicate commander, and as it turns out, 7 mana, give your creatures +7/+7 and trample is a pretty good way to kill your opponent out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I realized that about halfway through the game, and then I lost the game.
I wanted to ask something. I don't think I asked this to you last time we talked, but when you're building for these decks, or when you have the stipulations and it comes to like the actual deck building process, are you trying to are you actually trying to game out what you think other people will be doing and build a deck that's good against that? Or are you just like, I'm going to build a fun deck that I think is something that's going to be fun to pilot? Or like, what's your approach here? Because you mentioned like you thought there would be Adelines and you kind of geared towards that. Is that your general approach, is like trying to figure out trying to put other people on certain decks and then building something that beats that?
Well, kind of. I mean, after this league, I learned that it wasn't a great idea to do that because the metagame looked entirely different than what I expected. I was thinking Adeline and Atraxa and maybe a couple of other one-off commanders, but a lot of people cooked. There was the mono blue storm deck, there was the mono blue mill deck, there were the Nissa decks. Someone came with Thalia and the Gitrog monster, which was a refreshingly spicy meatball. But with this league, I started, and with a lot of the leagues actually, I start by just kind of looking at the pool of powerful cards that I would be happy to play. And as it turned out, a lot of them were in these colors, and that meant Chandra, Adeline, or Quint for me, and I ended up on Quint.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I think of all the leagues we've done, this league had the most diversity, or the most like just fun strategies that I've seen across the board. We also had 12 people in this league, which is the most that we've ran with in a single like pod where everybody plays against the 11 other opponents. So it was refreshing that like you played 7, 8, 9 matches or whatever everybody ended up playing, and you really didn't play against the same deck more than once. We did have 3 mono green players. 2 of them were on Nissa Ascended Wakenist, and the other one was on the March of the Machine Vorinclex. And I think the Vorinclex one ended up being the best of those because it actually ran removal spells, and I think the other 2 green players tried to get away with not running interaction, so that kind of backfired on them. But yeah, people really like did a bunch of cool things. I didn't play against the Thalia Gitrog deck, but I know Mop people had the blue black Satoru, the Infiltrator deck, which was awesome. I thought my deck was pretty cool with the O'Hare Axonil mono red commander from
gosh, how could I mention cooking without that?
Yeah, it was a really sweet deck to play, but
coolest thing.
It was you completely destroyed me in our matchup, but I think it highlights
only because I drew removal spells at the right time. Like I was constantly on the precipice of just missing a single kill spell and dying, and I managed to draw enough kill spells.
Yeah, we talked about this last time, but I have a really bad habit of building decks where the commander is the central card in the deck, and if the commander doesn't stick or it gets countered or whatever, like my deck doesn't really have a strong avenue to win in. Whereas something like Quintorius, like in the deck I'm looking at right now, you could kind of ignore Quintorius altogether and probably piece together. I'm willing to bet, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm willing to bet you won a couple games without ever having to even cast Quintorius.
Yeah, there were a couple of games where Quintorius was maybe the final nail in the coffin, but no, this was very much, and this is the kind of Magic I love. I just got to kind of play a good fair mid-range game plan. Irascible Wolverine went crazy. It's just this is a 3/2, and then it draws me a removal spell, and then other people start crying, and I'm just really happy with the whole scenario. Fun's a zero-sum game, and I want to have all of
And you did. I mean, you went again. There were 12 people. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Again, I think 9-2 was your
Yeah.
final record. You did lose to the Nissa deck, one of the Nissa decks, which I was watching. He did get the overrun effect off, which turns out is a good way to turn a bunch of like really crappy mana dorks and like 3-mana 3/3s into a winning line of play. What was the other deck that took you down? I don't recall.
The Geralf Mono Blue
Oh
Storm,
yeah,
which
Doug's deck.
was
Yeah.
also a cool deck. Oh yeah, Doug went off.
Yeah, Doug had like half wins, half losses, but his deck was really cool. It was mono blue with the Outlaws of Thunder Junction Geralf, and it was just looking to stick Geralf and then storm. It was very similar to my deck in the sense that like if the commander didn't stick, the deck didn't work, but it was one of the cooler decks that came. And I did watch some practice matches with Doug. Doug actually tried out Atraxa. Because that was the one that everyone's like, oh, how is this not the best commander that you can play with this set of stipulations? And he played Atraxa, and it turns out when your deck is like all redundant copies of like cantrip creatures and 1-for-1 removal spells, like landing an Atraxa off of the back of really bad common mana fixin isn't really that good. Like you draw like 2 or 3 cards, but they're just more of the same cards. It's nothing that really puts you over the top. And if somebody had like you have all of these pacifism effects. If you just slap a pacifism on the Atraxa and you hit them for like 10 the turn they play that, like who cares that they drew a bunch of extra cards, So nobody actually submitted Atraxa, which was kind of refreshing. This keeps happening where people are like, oh, it's got to be, this is the best commander that you could play with the stipulations, and then like nobody actually submits it, or like it doesn't do very well. So you gotta get over the hype a little.
We did run into that problem with the current league, but
well,
it's a smaller one anyway.
Yeah, let's talk about the current league real quick because you were the winner of league number 5, which means you got to pick the stipulations for league number 6. So remind me what those stipulations are. And I've only played 2 matches of the current league so far, but I believe you've played all of yours, given that Teld has dropped from the league this week. But how did you land on the stipulations that you landed on?
Yeah, so the 2 for this week or this league are Zoomer Magic, which is only cards not legal in Explorer, which was a Drix stipulation, and Dibs, which is a commander that hasn't been used in Brawlbarians before. And that was a Necroid step. Both of which I thought were really cool. I thought that at first that Drix was making a joke about how Explorer is only played by the young folk and it's only the new cards, it's for the Zoomers, but he meant, no, it's Hearthstone Magic, where all the cards have Heist and Discover and whatnot. And it kind of has ended up being Baldur's Gate and Lord of the Rings block constructed.
Yeah, plus alchemy, plus all the alchemy.
Plus
stuff.
alchemy, and there are some Modern Horizons too, and a couple of older cards.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, either way, it's a super cool card pool. We did lose a couple of players who didn't want to, finagle the arena filters or use Scryfall to search for the cards that are legal, not in Explorer, or are not legal in Explorer. So it's a bit of a smaller league this week, but also we have some players who are kind of tired and waiting for the big change that's going to come to the format with Modern Horizons 3. And then Dibs was also just kind of a cool idea. Get some new blood in. I don't get to hurt anyone's feelings with Ambergris again, and I'll be the first to admit Ambergris, the card's a little too strong.
Yeah, I mean,
but a lot of us ended up on Minthara.
I played against there's 6 people in the league. 3 of them are on Minthara, which is I guess I can pull it up on screen here, but it's a pretty insane card, and it has an alchemized version on Arena, which is like a slightly better version of the paper version that exists, so it's a little weird that they just made a better version. I landed on Viconia playing blue-black. If you don't know, the specialized creatures, which I know are not everyone's cup of tea, but I kind of enjoy them. When you register a specialized creature in the command zone for Brawl, you are prompted to pick a second color, and that is your deck's color identity. So I picked blue, which means I have a blue-black deck with Viconia, even though you can still specialize into the other colors, which is a little weird. But I just went like straight control. I think we have a Jaheira deck, a red-green Jaheira deck that I have not seen I don't think they've played matches yet. And then the sixth deck is eluding me right now.
Um, Gosh, I think, or it's Ohi, or no, it's Rasad blue white. Rasad
Yeah, that's it.
the Banisher priest.
See if I can pull that one. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
and
obviously
Jahira
I
is
don't
the
know how to
2/3
spell
hex
it,
priest.
so.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So like I think that was Drix's point when he made that stipulation, is he kind of wanted to force people to play specialized commanders, though there are other viable commanders. But I think, I mean, we don't have a particularly diverse group this time, and we only have six
Mhm.
people. But the Minthara decks that I played against, which are the only two I've played against so far, did play fairly differently. There were a lot of different card
Mhm.
choices. I haven't played against the third one yet, but I guess you could speak to that. Like, did you just think Mithara was the best commander to go with, or just had the best tools given the limitations on the card pool?
Yeah, again, I mostly started with the card pool, and Minthara had access. I mean, quite frankly, there's a lot of really powerful cards in this format.
Yes,
So I looked at the card pool, realized there's a lot of power to go around. There were a couple of colors that were a little on the weaker side, but really anything was viable. So I then looked at the commanders, and there were a lot of pretty mediocre commanders and a lot of pretty okay commanders. And then I ended up looking between like Viconia, Minthara, Mouth of Sauron, um, Ohi Exquisite Blade, but I didn't really see enough to make Ohi work. So I ended up on Minthara, just and my deck, one of the one that you beat of the, or actually, you beat both of the decks you played against, right?
I did,
But
and they were very
yeah,
close matches both times.
yeah, no, my Minthara deck plays a lot like just kind of a deck with cards in it, and then also you have Minthara in the command zone. That's again kind of playing fair mid-range Magic,
Yeah, I
grinding them out.
one of my takeaways from the current league is how good Heist is. The new mechanic
Oh
from
yeah,
Outlaws of Thunder Junction. What's it? Grave Expectations, I think.
yeah.
Um,
What if we made Ponder better and
yeah,
put it in black at instant speed?
like
Like that's crazy.
it pulls cards out of your opponent's graveyard, but it never hits a land, so you always hit a spell. And a lot of the Heist effects are also on top of like decent cards as well. So Heist
Hmm.
has been great. I will say one of my edges, at least against the two um, Minthara decks that I played against, is that my commander Viconia just eats graveyards. It just has a
Oh
passive
yeah.
like 1 mana exile a card from a graveyard, and both of the Minthara decks I've played against have had plenty of graveyard interaction that I've been able to just like
Hmm.
completely nerf with my commander.
Yep.
So that's been
And
working in
that's a
my
good call
favor.
there.
I mean, that wasn't like I just like the card Viconia, but it just so
Hmm.
happens to have this effect that's really good against a lot of the recursive stuff. But yeah, I played against Teld, and unfortunately he dropped after our match, saying that like he's not a big fan of alchemy in general, so like he was already a
Uh-huh.
little turned off by a pool of cards that was like almost exclusively alchemy. But at the same time, like we played our match, we had a really good game. We both agreed it was a great game, and he was like, I don't know if I really want to play a format that's dictated almost entirely by alchemy, and the alchemy cards are like
Hmm.
notably probably the best cards in everybody's decks. They push these
Pretty
alchemy
much.
cards at common and uncommon pretty high.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. I just always enjoy the challenge of building. And I gotta say, if you're listening to this and you enjoy building Magic the Gathering decks, which, that seems kind of like a circle Venn diagram, you gotta try the Brawlbarians League. It's a lot of fun. You get to work in these funny little constraints every week, and every week somebody will surprise you with something they've put together. Like in no world would I have expected to play against a Storm deck last week.
oh no, absolutely not. And I mean Drix, I don't know if I've ever actually played a game against Drix in these leagues. It just seems like it never lines up. But Drix brings like the heat. Like
Hmm.
I mean, he's listening. He knows this isn't an insult, but he doesn't bring good decks. But he brings like these really, like he knows what I mean, and he knows like he's submitting. So I'm not. I mean that like wholeheartedly, but he brings these like really like bizarre off the wall decks that are just really cool. Like they're not the best thing
Uh-huh.
that you could submit, but they're really cool decks with really cool concepts. Like we did the typo league where people were bringing like humans and elves and stuff, and he brought like colorless constructs or something like that with the blue green changeling as his commander, and it was just like I would have never even landed on that as a
Mhm.
possibility. So people do, to quote the young folk, they do cook sometimes. And
Oh,
we
they're
have
cooking.
we have spikes too. We have people who are,
Mhm.
trying to game out what's the best thing I can do, and then what's the best version of that deck I can build, while we also have people who are kind of more in it for the deck building, not really trying to spike it. But there's a healthy mix, I think, going on, and people have fun with their matches. It's usually pretty good gameplay. So I
And the
can only.
Johnnies beat the spikes a fair amount.
They do,
It's
yeah.
it's cool to see.
Yeah, there's a lot of back and forth. I don't know. I think of the 5 leagues we've done, we've only had one person who's won multiple leagues, which was Necroid, who won League 3 and 4, and unfortunately, I haven't
Oh, I thought
had.
I run 3.
Oh, did you? Did you win 3, and I
I
just
think so.
never interviewed you for it?
It could have been. I was black red ambergris for that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was the one that I had to dip out of, so I didn't pay like
Oh,
too
I won the other
close.
pod. That was a 2 pod league. Okay.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Well, I guess I missed an interview opportunity with you there, but I think it's too far in the past to like really go back and
It's
track
okay.
those. So, sorry for missing that one, and sorry to
No
Necroid that I
worries.
didn't get on board with that, but I had some other stuff going on. So, I am trying to regularly put these out though. But I think what we're doing here is, at the time of recording, we've got about a week until Modern Horizons 3 comes out, which is probably going to revolutionize what we're doing here. Like, there's just so many
Oh
good
yeah.
cards at common and uncommon, and in the play booster era, they're really pushing what commons and uncommons can do. And
Hmm.
I think if people are just really looking forward to what that's going to bring to Brawlbarians on top of, you know, um, the rest of Magic, what other formats and stuff like that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna call it a short hiatus until Modern Horizons 3 drops, and then I think we're gonna go through the list of current stipulations and just weed out any of the ones that are like too hard to filter for, or lead to very similar decks across the board. So we're gonna take a closer look at that, and make sure we're actually having fun stipulations that people will enjoy building around. But aside from that, I can only echo your sentiment that like Brawlbarians is just really fun for deck builders and people who want to play not necessarily on the ladder where you're just like jamming into the same decks over and over again in the tier system or whatever's going on with the matchmaking on Arena. So I would highly recommend come to check it out. You can find links to our Discord down below. Before we close out, is there anything else you wanted to say about the 9-2 Quintorius deck from League 5?
Not too much. I mean, mid-range Magic's fun, and if you like playing, Magic turned slightly sideways in formats you're not used to, can't recommend it enough. Also, if you like Cube, you should join the the Jank Diver Gaming Discord server and play some Cube, because there's some good Cube drafting going on here too.
Great segue. Yeah, I mean, we are a cube-related community. We're just trying to branch out and make sure we're covering our bases with other people. We've got a lot of lurkers in the Discord server who don't necessarily play cube, so I just want to make sure we're offering some other stuff for them to do. And it dawned on me, there were enough people who enjoyed playing Brawl, but didn't really care much for playing a good Brawl deck and jamming into Ragavan over and over again. So this felt nice. It'll expose you to a lot of cards too, especially given the usual peasant stipulations. So. Um,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, I learn a new card every time I play this league.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite is when someone plays a card against me that I'm like, I don't know what that is or what that's from. So it's always fun.
Yep.
Like TRF said, come join the Discord server. There are links down below wherever you're listening to this. All you have to do is join up and shout out somewhere in the Discord, hey, I'm interested in joining the Brawlbarian League, and we'll get you situated from there. And you probably don't even have to worry about wild cards since it's pretty much usually common and uncommon based with some very rare exceptions. So TRF, thanks for sitting down and doing this once again with me. Hopefully this one works. If this one doesn't work, then it's a sign we're not supposed to be talking, but I appreciate you taking the time again
Oh, of course.
to sit down and talk. And yeah, best of luck in the current league as well. I mean, you're the front runner right now. I think you ended at 4-1. Given Telly's,
You're undefeated as of yet, though.
yeah, I'm undefeated at 2-0 though, so there's still time. But
There's
best of
still time.
luck in
We'll
this
see.
one and the future ones. And thanks for hanging out. To all the listeners, my name is Timothy with Jank Diver Gaming, and I will catch you all next time.